and founder of UBERDOC. So thank you for being here today.
It's delightful being here.
It's so much fun. And, honestly, like I was so inspired and so just like incredibly, I felt like I knew you. When I heard you speaking on UBERDOC, I just could really relate to your journey. And I really thought that it would be my audience would love to hear more about the work that you're doing. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about the work that she's doing. So Dr. Paula Muto, MD, is UBERDOC's founder and CEO. She's a practicing vascular and general surgeon in solo practice and the owner of the Vein Center at Muto Surgical. She is a member of a family of physicians and surgeons who have collectively practiced medicine in Massachusetts for over 50 years. She's an outspoken advocate for patient care and is passionate about women's health. I'm going to actually share one of the stories that she has here, and it's the UBERDOC story from her herself. So she says, I'm a surgeon like my father before me, my brother, my two uncles. I'm even married to one. You could say it's a family business. That's why I take it personally when patients can't get the care they need because it's too difficult to navigate the system. I also take it personally when I see my colleagues struggle to remain in practice without compromising their independence. Rather than complain, I decide to fix it. With the help of a team of doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, and experts in insurance and information technology, we developed a simple web app that connects patients to specialists for a transparent price using health savings accounts or a credit card. So we do the unthinkable, increase access while decreasing cost. So thank you again, Paula, for being here. Super inspiring. And, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the work that you're doing. So first of all, what made you decide to pursue a career in physician entrepreneurship?
So that's an interesting question. When I read that question, I thought, well, what does that mean, physician entrepreneurship, right? So I've been in solo private practice basically my entire life. After actually, leaving my first practice, I came out of training. I did general surgery. I did vascular surgery. I went out in training, joined a group, had my second child, and then actually got fired for being on maternity leave. So
that's another story in itself.
That's a whole nother story. So, but the interesting thing about it is I went into private practice. My dad was a thoracic surgeon. I moved right into his office. I set up shop separately, two separate businesses under the same kind of roof, paid him rent, and I never looked back. So I can say that I was kind of an entrepreneur from that moment on. Right? Because then you're just deciding you're not going to work for anybody, but you have to run an office and you have to have the challenges of billing, collecting, dealing with patients, having employees. I mean, there's a lot going there. When I built my vein center, when I started I'm a vascular surgeon, and when I saw the writing on the wall that Lipitor was clearly going to put us out of business, I started working, and I always did veins because that was something women vascular surgeons often got referred. I put a team around me, and again, putting a team together of really first-class people, putting the patient first, and then marketing it through the digital means and onto the internet, not relying on my doctor's lounge. That was another, looking back, that's an entrepreneurial journey, right? So when I sat in my office in an inner city and saw the kind of struggle patients constantly had in coming to you, with a breast lump, with a hernia, with a swollen leg. I mean, it was just, they needed to go to so many steps before they got to you. And I said, this doesn't work. And that's when I said, well, I have an idea. And I think it might be a good one. And I floated around to all of my colleagues, and they said, oh my God, that's such a great idea. I floated around to a lot of people. And that's where I decided, what, I could continue to try to write angry letters, which I do all the time, and complain about it, or try to take all those skills that I had in those 20 years in practice and said, wait a minute, why don't I see if I can fix this? And next thing you know, I started a tech company. I built a site. Turns out doctors are very good at the agile method. So it was just kind of a passion, a drive. I think it came from somewhere else. I don't know how to explain that. I look back and my dad was a great inventor. His entire career, he was a thoracic surgeon serving the community in 2 hospitals so that he was at age 80, taking call. But he also invented and had many patents, and he sold them to companies. He was always with bright young people, and he loved that. Engineers and people, on the cutting edge of medicine. And again, we called him crazy inventor. He was actually an entrepreneur himself. And I think that was what really drove him in terms of the passion to try to change things. So I think that my journey as an entrepreneur started with just, survival, right? You have to kind of do what it takes to make your business work. And then when you have a new idea, that aha moment, and you say to yourself, do you have the will? Do you have the passion? Do you have the drive? And can you sleep at night without trying to fix it? Like, could I live with myself with this great idea and not at least try to give it?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, how long has UBERDOCs been, like, when was UBERDOCs established? Because I looked at your website, and I know you have a good number of physicians that are now working through UBERDOC. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about when you started it and a little bit more about what you actually do?
Okay, so again, it'll come on the Ides of March 15th, 2016. So we're going to have our 5th birthday.
Wow.
I put a lot of colleagues in a room, doctors who were entrepreneurs as well. They were kind of investors, like doctors who were building condominiums, or who were invested in some biotech. Nurses, managed care expert, people on the front lines, information technology people, electronic record experts, everyone from around my community in my local world who were on the front lines of healthcare, but in every aspect. I put them all in a room together, and I said, here's the idea. Do you think we can create an app, a web application that patients can just find a doctor who's nearby and available? And rather than make the price high, like in a concierge model, lower it, but make it cash. So we lower the price below insurance, but above Medicare to be legal. And we also offer the direct access, but we make it outside insurance as a cash payment. And they were like, you build it, we want this. So the next day, doctors invested immediately. And then I got a lot of colleagues, so we had our seed money. And within 6 months, we built our platform. And then it was to recruit doctors. So I started in my doctor's lounge, in my surgeon's lounge, in my doctor's lounge, in my local community, in the communities outside of my community. I was with just 6 core surgical specialties, because it was originally built for surgeons, right? Because surgeons needed referrals. So that made sense. You twist your ankle, you go to an orthopedic directly instead of the walk-in. That was the kind of model. But then I started talking to doctors outside my community. And then I went to every major institution in the city of Austin, which is pretty tall tale. And everywhere I went, I had a hands down, oh my God, aha moment where, wow, this is so great. So then I started, maybe it's just Massachusetts because things aren't great in Massachusetts. Maybe they're all hoping for something new. And I went across country, and I went outside, and I went outside my specialty, and I went outside surgery. And I crossed the country twice, and everyone I talked to, I began to just listen, and everyone had the same story. And the question is, would you take a patient for cash, even if it's less money than insurance, because they're going to pay you immediately? And the answer was a resounding yes to everyone. And then I heard their stories about the burnout, about the lack of autonomy, about like, we need a change. We just want to do our job. We love the fact that we can just see a patient and not worry about getting paid, right? Just see the patient, take care of them. So as we built this model, the primary cares came to us, the internal medicine doctors, and it turns out all doctors are specialists, internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry. So our platforms began to expand. We started off at the very beginning as a subscription model, and then we pulled the subscription and said, no, UBERDOC is just a transaction. We give you the patient. We are the introducer, like an aggregator. We take a small transaction, and you get 85% of it. We get 15% for that appointment, and that patient is yours afterwards. Mm-hmm. So by going to a transactional model, we kind of bought ourselves a little longer runway, but we needed to build a big network because we had employers saying, you build this, we will come, but we need a big network. So we kept building and building and listening and building these networks, these bridges, these strategic partners. And it's kind of like this big giant doctor's lounge all over again. In a moment when we're so our whole medical communication is so difficult, right? When primary cares don't come to the hospital, they don't meet the surgeons that operate on their patients. Patients are so disconnected, right? Their primary cares take care of them, but when they get sick, they get a whole new group of doctors taking care of them in the hospital with the hospitalists. There's really been a pulling apart, shall we say, of medicine. And what I'm seeing is doctors are coming together, and they're coming together like in an enthusiastic way. And also because they believe in price transparency, they believe in just something simpler. So we just kept growing and growing, and now a year ago we were offered a telemedicine platform in 2019. This wonderful engineer who was the video conferencing behind the space station. Okay, this is the guy who created a lot of the software for a lot of the telemedicine that you see every day. He came to me, he said, "You're beautiful." I'm like, "Wow, I'm beautiful." He said, "Your platform is you're doing the right thing," because this guy wants to save orphans in the Philippines, right? He doesn't want to see his telemedicine product becoming just hair tonics and wellness and in one-offs. He wants to see this in the hands of the end user, the physician. And I said to him, "Well, maybe it would be a good idea. I don't know. Maybe my psychiatrist would like it, but what would a surgeon do with telemedicine?" And here we are. We started telemedicine in 2019. 2020, we just exploded. And now we are able to give our doctors all the tools they need to connect with their patient. So UBERDOC's mission was always easy access and price transparency. And the word access now has changed. Access doesn't have to be in person, although most of our patients still like that in person. But you can find a doctor that if you can't find one nearby and available, you can find one that's available, that's nearby in terms of within your state lines. And this is huge because we have so many specialists there's so few of them, and there's so many people out there with diseases that need their expertise. So UBERDOC has now become this new, this bigger vision of access and transparency. And that's where we are now as 2020, as we grew from 300 doctors to over 3,000. We're closing in on 4,000 doctors. We have a pipeline of another 8,000 doctors like us. We like them. We give doctors very little reason not to join. They can join the basic without charge. They can bring their telemedicine with them. If they don't have telemedicine, we will provide it. So we do have some subscription models in there, but we really want to launch this as just pure model of just transactional to see what doctors can do. And I'm asking doctors around the country to give me 1 or 2 seats in their waiting room. That's all, just 1 seat a week in a busy office of 50 to 75 patients a week. Just give me 1 seat. And it sells or it doesn't sell, but there are patients out there who are in such high need of care. The demand is huge. So I'm very excited because this entire company is physician built, nursing built, people on the front lines of care. It is physician owned. Right now, physicians are the people who have invested in UBERDOC. And I think that we have a really great opportunity to bring doctors to the table together. So far, it's been fantastic. And I, again, rely on my colleagues.
It's incredible. I mean, I loved your story on your website, the one that I shared initially, just because I feel like it really encompasses so much about your company. I mean, you're connecting patients with physicians, and, we've seen a lot of difficulty in access to care, especially now in a COVID pandemic, during the COVID pandemic, which has kind of brought these issues to light even more. And then in addition, you have physicians on the other side who are really struggling to deliver care, there's a lot of physician burnout in the community, and it gives them another option, another way to connect with patients. And, I've always been intrigued by the referral system, how do, you'll speak to a patient and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I'm going to see so-and-so especially for surgery, because I'm an anesthesiologist, I'll say, oh, how did you connect with this surgeon? You know, and many times they're farther away from their house, or they are not always, you know, they're not who I would thought would be doing the surgery. And I'm not trying to knock any physicians whatsoever, but, you know, I was just curious how patients are connecting with physicians, and it's very tough, you know. Or I see patients who are spending, waiting months to get an appointment with the physician, for various reasons.
It's crazy. And I think the concept of what you just said is so important. The best care is delivered nearby, right? Really, the best care, unless you're traveling for something that only one or two people know how to do. And that's because when you have surgery, for example, and now you send people home, right?
Right.
You have a family that has to be involved in the care of that patient. And so when your employer decides to make a great deal with a group of network doctors that are oftentimes in even another state,
Yeah.
It makes it problematic, because it might be good for your employer, but what about your spouse's employer? Your spouse has to take off 3 days to take you back and forth, right? It doesn't make sense. And I should say, you know, my aha moments that finally pushed me over the edge with UBERDOC was when I was reading a Sunday Times article about a woman in New York City who twists her ankle on on a curb, and then she goes to the walk-in and dutifully to her primary, who promptly refers her to an orthopedic in Stamford, Connecticut, which she obviously can't get to because she doesn't drive. Her ankle's swollen, and there's no public transportation. So she Googles orthopedic surgeons and finds like 20 of them in a 2-block radius of where she lives. She went to one, paid cash. She said it was transparent. And she said, why can't it be that way? And that was the moment I said, why can't it be that way? And so that's the cool version, the thought process behind, when UBERDOC, that moment. Now, we use the word Uber as above the average because we are trying to differentiate ourselves from that walk-in experience, from that one-off, phone call, through a teledoc kind of thing, which could be just a one-time visit. Our brand is different. It's not about wellness, it's about illness, right? Doctors take care of problems, chronic disease, acute disease. That's what we do. And that's what we do best. That's, and again, a specialist is good at something because we do it 10,000 times. It's not hard for us, right? I come up with the answer so fast because I've seen like a million times, it's not that I'm so I have to say that what you say is 100% true, that and even in a place like Boston where you can't walk down the street without tripping over like really well-trained doctors, it's still 52 days to get to see a specialist. And, and my brother is a top G1 oncologist in Boston. To get to him, you got to either call me or phone a friend or have the right employer or have the right. And I'm like, this is wrong. Why should people have all these, be privileged to have the right employer, the right amount of money, the right connections to get to the best? You should be able to push a button and get to the best. And that price has to be transparent. It can't be free because it's illegal to not, many people don't know this. You can't provide care for free and be a Medicare provider. So I just wanted equal access to the best through a transparent process. And that was really a big part of UBERDOC. It's like knowing that you could always phone a friend, right? Like you said, they'll call you and say, who's a good surgeon, right? It's like, how does anyone else have that capacity? And that's what UBERDOC provides.
I completely agree with that. I mean, our system is broken in so many ways, and it's so inspiring to meet people like you who are physicians who are really trying to fix the system, and they are working within the system and they're addressing these problems and they're trying to fix them. My other question for you was, in terms of your goals for the next year with UBERDOC, what are your goals? Like, obviously, expansion.
To take over the world. No.
Of course. Of course.
Honestly, so I have a great day job. I think you figured that out, right? I'm not, I didn't do this for this $1 trillion payout, but UBERDOC has that absolute unicorn potential. The other direct to consumer stuff out there has been explosive, but but none of it is in the doctor side, right? None of it is actually about medical care. It's about, again, these kind of peripheral stuff. I think that UBERDOC's success will put the doctors front and center again, because there are fewer than 1 million of us in this country, and we are way under. We're on short supply, and there's high demand. And the doctors have been on the sidelines for too long, along with the patients, that we're not even considered stakeholders. If we want a seat at the table for physicians and their patients, we have to have clout, right? And I think that with UBERDOC, what I want to see is that expand our network of doctors with the expansion, the revenue streams, get the right partner in all of this. And I hate to say this, the right partner, because, we're a company, we're a startup, we have investors, we need to scale. You can't scale by yourself. And it isn't about the money. This is something that's people have to, it's never about the money. It's about the connection, right? The money comes with the opportunities.
Right.
And that's what, it's just like education. It's not about the what you learn in the classroom. It's the opportunities and the connections you make in the institutions where you learn or train, right? So finding the right dance partner is very, very important to be able to bring this to that next level. But that will require sort of a partnership. So right now, that's what we're doing, is we're pushing UBERDOC out to the patients now. I was very reticent to do that. I wanted to not open the doors on Black Friday till I had enough inventory on my shelf, because we didn't want people going to UBERDOC and saying, well, I can't find what I'm looking for. And that's happening. People are like, I need a gastroenterologist in Austin, Texas. The closest one might be 300 miles away. We say, okay, we're going to try to recruit doctors in your area. There's no friction. As long as they're certified and they're trained, there's no friction, there's no resistance to joining. So we want to please that patient. We have patients, we have doctors, we want to match make. And so that's really very important to us, to build that network. So getting it out to the patient now, and let them know there's an alternative. They don't have to pull out that insurance card every time. It's cheaper, faster to go directly to a specialist. It's going to be less money in the end. We've made nice partnerships with people that can provide prescription drugs at cost, x-rays at cost, blood tests at cost. I mean, this is kind of out there now, right? And we are very agnostic and fit in really nicely with all of this. So our goal in the first part of this year is, just as we always recruit doctors, we want more doctors, we want to create specialty verticals. That's so exciting. We have a really talented pulmonologist that you really need to interview, who wants to end lung cancer in women. That's her vision, to end lung cancer. She said, you can screen, you can do it through a telemedicine model, you can do it through low dose CAT scan, you can see them in person. We have pulmonologists all over the country that will take care, and early diagnosis will eradicate death from lung cancer. I'm like, you know what? That's amazing. How can UBERDOC help? Like, build a vertical around lung cancer, build it on breast. Breast cancer is my thing, right? I've been an advocate forever, and I can't stand the way the system is too expensive, too inaccessible. You got to go back 30 times. I had a vision when I had my mammogram to be able to use a telemedicine model where the radiologist would appear in room with you. Remotely, they'd appear and say, hey, Paula, your mammogram looks good, or you have dense breasts, or we need to do a spot compression. None of this nonsense. Come back. And some of this can be done through insurance. Some of it can be done through a cash model, because it's inexpensive stuff.
Yeah.
This is stuff that flies under deductibles anyways. And to be able to offer high value, transparency, and just kind of like get on the old fashioned, get to the root of the matter and take care of the patient. And I think that these are the exciting things about UBERDOC in this next year, as we grow and grow, and as the patients start to come in and tell us more and more what they want. And that's a big piece of it too. Listening to the doctor on one side, and you've got to listen to the patient as well on the other.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, it's so fascinating on so many levels. I mean, from the standpoint of a patient who just really wants access to care, and like you said, like, a lot of these things do fly under deductibles, and patients, if you speak to an anxious patient who has a history of breast cancer or a family history of breast cancer, and they get a mammogram, I mean, they want to know the result right away. And
Would you pay $250 to get your mammogram once a year? I would so do that, because just for the convenience of not having to wait 366 days or get it when I want to get it, or, not have to calling an office. You know how people put a whole half a day aside to call certain offices? And if you make your own appointment, that's terrible on the doctor's side, because there's a 40% no-show rate. I mean, the other, there are other competitors out there for appointment making. Every hospital has a doctor finder and an appointment maker, but those are really unreliable. Those patients don't. In our model, the patients put $50 down. If they don't show up or cancel appropriately, they lose that $50. So we see our no-show rates are much lower. So we have to understand that what we do is not free, but what we do is not expensive either. It is a business. And we're transparent. And I don't want to use the word and I do want to use it. It's fee for service. We do a service and we get paid for it. But they want to. There's been this push over the last couple decades to kind of ignore that, eliminate that global payment. But you don't need global payment anymore. I mean, we don't need this massive system. Again, my own profession, vascular. I cut my teeth on tibial bypass. That's why I went into it. I love those 4 to 5 hour cases of the Proline. I'm sure you don't as an anesthesiologist.
No,
I loved it. I loved it as a surgeon. And those crisp, beautiful carotids. I remember the last time I did a carotid, I'm like, oh, this is lovely. But it doesn't make sense anymore, because, when you look at your ultrasound, you put your patients on statins and you can't smoke in public, and you put them on aspirin, and statins. We're just beginning to see the benefits of statins, even in lowering risk of blood clot and DVT and PE. It's like, wow. So I kind of saw that there was technology didn't just take me out of the OR. It took me into the office. It took the patient from in the hospital with an operation to a pill. And you think of cancer care. Cancer care is like a perfect example. It used to be that you go to a cancer center, or you'd be admitted. In my day, we'd be admitted and we give induction therapy to our patients, inpatient. Then inpatient moved to cancer centers. Now you have a genetic footprint of a blueprint of your cancer, and you have a pill that's designed for you. So now you're no longer in the hospital, you're at home taking that pill. So it doesn't matter what the pill costs, because the delivery of the pill. The delivery doesn't require the complexity of a giant system. And this has been one of the things that I've observed with all the attempts to fix healthcare, is no one's really paying attention to what we do every day, right? Every day. You told me before this started about a thoracic surgeon that does robotic surgery in 45 minutes and patients go home. That's a completely different delivery, right? Bernie Sanders has a heart attack. He gets a stent and he's home in 24 hours and back on the campaign trail in a week. He's not in an ICU for 6 weeks, like the old days, right? You're 2 weeks ICU, 6 weeks rehab, right? The whole thing. It's like, we need a healthcare system that fits the new technology, the new medicine, not the old stuff. And that's going to be much less expensive, more streamlined, and more focused on what the diseases are. But the doctors have to lead the way. We can no longer be the ones on the side waiting for electronic records to come to us. We can control digital health. We can lead the charge with telemedicine. We can actually be in the front of this one.
That's great. That's so true. And that's one of the reasons why I started this video series, was to really, not only inform physicians, but also inform other physicians about the incredible work that physicians and our colleagues are doing. And I really do think that it's important for us to be knowledgeable and also be at the forefront of, healthcare tech and the growing field. I mean, it's just expanding. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And talk a little bit about representation of women in healthcare tech. And I know it's a broad field. So, you're a physician entrepreneur. Female representation is very applicable to you. You're also in a male-dominated specialty, and we could probably spend hours talking about it.
We could spend hours, but we won't.
Exactly.
Because I'll tell you, it's baffling. So as you know, too, when you went to medical school, it was probably more 50-50. But when I went, it wasn't that far behind. I graduated from college in 1985, height of the meritocracy. I went to colleges that had been co-ed for 5 years.
Mhm.
Okay, so we kind of just put on, we learned aside our male colleagues, we kind of marched through the process in surgical training. You just did what what the process had been established, and you were well trained. When I went into the business world, and I should say that, there's a lot of challenges for women in medicine in general. We're still at 80%, and that's a whole nother story. But honestly, if you are credentialed, right, and you did your job and you have your board, they'll let you intubate the patient, right? You get to do the anesthesia, I get to do the surgery, right? In other words, you can fly the plane. You're a qualified pilot, you're allowed to fly the plane. So when I moved into this business world, I thought, same deal, right? As long as I show that I'm qualified, as long as I meet my milestones, build my tech, do my platform, everything else. What I found was that wasn't the case. The business world is really different. Again, this is the private equity kind of, startup world. It's not necessarily the corporate world.
Right, which is also very male dominated.
Yeah. So after I built my tech and I got my first, 50 doctors on the platform, and we started, they said, "Oh, Paula, you're going to present at all of these startup. Boston's a really fertile community,
Right.
So I went around and pitched to all these, angel groups and startup things. And I would get like standing ovations because people have a visceral response to not getting care, right? Not getting in. That everyone can remember when they were worried about something, that we thought they were, that shadow on a mammogram that they needed to get in right away. So people have a visceral response to UBERDOC. Crickets. I'm like, okay, this is weird. I'm getting this huge response, even from like women founder groups. And I'm getting like, as I check my email, is it in spam? Like, maybe my phone call, do I smell? I mean, what's going on here? Then I started to do research, and out came the Wall Street Journal article. NPR did stuff on that, the horrible statistics that only 2% of venture capital goes to women founders. 2%. And if you're married to a guy, if you have a co-founder as a man, it like goes to 10%. I mean, that's about it. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. How did I not know this? Now, I honestly, I'm probably completely naive, but again, I'm a surgeon. I kind of figured, I know there were programs that didn't train women, but when I applied for residency, my advisor said, okay, don't apply to that one. You'll get in as an intern, but they never graduated chief. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm not dumb. I want to be a surgeon. I'm going to choose a program that actually graduated for one, right? Makes sense, right? We're all smart that way. So it's not like the doors are all open to us, but you go through the one that you have the passcode, right? You don't sit there and bang against the door that you're never going to open. Because, if you're a pilot and say United Airlines said, we're not going to have female pilots, you're going to go to Delta where they have female pilots. I mean, if you want to fly, that's where you're going to fly, right? I mean, it makes sense. But the business world, I didn't know that. So I went to my lawyer, who's a startup lawyer, and I went to my PR person at the time, was very feminist. And their answers were, oh, we weren't aware of that. I'm like, really? If I told a patient of mine the therapy I was giving them was not effective, they'd say, and the answer was, I just didn't know. I wouldn't be very good at my job. This is you guys are startup people. So then I realized, why didn't they get it, right? So then there's this, not just the facts are kind of like unknown, but there's this incredible unawareness about the people that are in the industry. So it's like this little cottage industry of startups. And there are a lot of women entrepreneurs, right? 40% of businesses are owned by women, right? You gave me that statistic. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful women out there with fantastic ideas. And you go to some of these incubator types and they're like more than half are women. But it's weird because no one's getting the money at the end. Like there's a big cosmic disconnect. So then I realized the industry is a little predatory. And there's a lot of like places out there that say, oh, you're a startup and we have a ton of women in our incubator, come on in, right? I think it's because they know that women don't get money, so they're more likely to go into an incubator. I mean, it's kind of like what
it's so interesting.
How does so I think that there are a lot of challenges and we haven't figured it out. And I'm kind of like 100% transparent about everything, pretty much. big mouth that I am. And I'm not afraid to ask, and I'm not afraid to say. So now when I get hit on by ventures, and they're in your inbox all the time, I always ask, oh, how many women have you invested in? Well, I don't know. It's like, well, you kind of spent the first 20 minutes telling me about our wonderful portfolio. It's like, you really don't know your companies, like which ones are founded by women. And they so when they don't give me the answer or the number isn't there, I say, I don't want to be the first, or whatever. No, thank you. And I know that sounds probably silly, but I think that you can't make people. I don't have the answer yet. I do know that when UBERDOC gets out there and we have that wonderful company that is the unicorn, one of my first things to do is to turn around and pull the curtain on the wizard here and say, okay, we got to change this conversation. And I don't have the answers. I don't. But I think we need to have an honest discussion about it. And the first thing we have to do is say we failed, right? Like women are so afraid to say we're weak, right? It's just like in surgery. If you're 80%, your women aren't getting promoted, or women don't get academic positions. It's like the first thing we have to say is, okay, guys, something's wrong, right? But it's hard to say something's wrong because, oh, why? You're not strong enough, right? So I don't have an answer to this. I do know that it's a huge problem. And the statistics in Q3, Q4 of 2020 were abysmal. Billions of dollar deals made, 0% women. It was a major setback for the little progress that was made. And that is one of my beefs in 2021 is to say, hey guys, stop, just stop. This is inappropriate. You're going to also turn away really good companies, and women tend to be much more successful, 2 to 1. We are a return on investment because probably we get invested in when we're a lot better, a lot further along in the process. There's a lot of work to be done there. And as a surgeon, I really don't take no for an answer very well. So not that I'm threatening anything, but you got to give me a reason. Right. You got to give me a good reason.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's a huge issue and it crosses so many fields. And I think that the pandemic has really brought this to light and it's made it even more challenging. I mean, I think that there was I forgot the actual number, but there was such a large number of women that have lost their jobs post-pandemic or had to quit due to childcare, due to the challenges at home, homeschooling. So,
the statistics are terrible. Women in research.
Oh, yeah.
All these COVID papers coming out and no first author. And research is, as you know, so competitive, right? So competitive.
Yeah.
Again, it's an issue of economics. Who's going to stay home with the child that needs to be in the Zoom classroom and who's going to go to work? So the one who makes more money is going to go to work, right? Because that's how family economy is built.
Right.
But women have really taken a hit across specialties, across professions, with COVID.
Yeah, actually, I interviewed, one of my videos is a interview with Dr. Anita Patel, who's also a PICU attending and at an academic center in DC. And she speaks a lot about those challenges in academic research. And I mean, she's killing it. She had a baby with me, so she's a 10-month-old. But it's a huge issue in academic medicine.
It is huge. And Dr. Sarah Parangi was our speaker at an Innovator MD event back in October. And she has a phenomenal talk, if you ever can see it, on parity across every specialty in medicine. Radiology is actually the only one equal because it's gender neutral, right? I think pathology might have been close as well, but everything else was 80%. Pediatrics, obstetrics, everything, 80%. And it goes all the way to the CPT code level. And she has this wonderful video that she starts her talk with 2 monkeys next door. And monkeys, I guess, like grapes. So they push the button, they get a grape, push a button, get a grape, push a button, get a grape. Now they push a button, one monkey gets a he gets something else. Like I can't remember something that monkeys don't like, right? He gets like a cracker. He's like, okay, he wants the grape. The other monkey is pushing the button, getting the grape. The other one's still not getting the grape. He's getting a cracker. And then after about 10 times, the monkey's rattling the cage and getting upset. And it's like, see, even a monkey can understand that they don't want to be paid less for the same work.
Right.
And that's how she starts her talk. And the frustration of that monkey, it's like, whoa, I'm there, right? Not to be rewarded the same for the same work that's done. So again, it's a great time to have this conversation because, if people can pay attention with COVID, having kind of like, everyone's on a press and pause and a reset button. But we need to reset it in a different way. And these conversations are incredibly important to have.
Yeah, very important. So I'm going to actually end this here because, there's so much we can talk about, and we'll probably do another video in the future, or maybe we'll do a clubhouse together. But I'm doing a clubhouse. I am doing a clubhouse this evening. I don't know.
Oh, nice. It's called Investors. You couldn't fit my investors, and is it a glass ceiling or a brick wall?
Oh yeah. Okay, great. What time is that at today?
6:30 on Sunday night. So,
okay.
So I thought, I'm doing with my lovely young co-founder, who's a young woman. And it's like, I said, we should just really put it out there. I hope male investors show up, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's awesome. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, in case they would like to reach out to you?
Okay, well, I live outside Boston. Anytime. I'm very receptive. As you can see, I'm a chatty Cathy, and I'm very happy to talk to anyone about anything. If they have a new device we can introduce to doctors, or something that we can introduce to patients, or they just want to pick my brain on like the world of like entrepreneurship and raising money. But you can get me at Paula at uber-docs.com. So our website, if you Google UBERDOC or uber-docs.com is our website. And my email is paula at uber-docs.com. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm just Paula Muto, MD on LinkedIn. I'm happy to respond.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. It was like an honor having you today. And
it's my pleasure.
It was so much fun. And we'll do another event together. I think it would be great. And a lot of people would be interested in learning more about UBERDOC. So thank you for joining me.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to